This is Cassel from Creation Cassel. In this video, we'll look at how to create a Play-Doh texture using a script in PaintShop Pro. To start, I'm going to apply this texture using a script on a regular, ordinary shape. So I'm going to use here a preset shape of a star. And although it's a vector layer, the script will take care of that. It could have been a raster layer if I had drawn it manually, but either way it will work. So I just run the script. And have 4 options for thickness. I'll use the default thickness, and if I'm not happy, I can just redo it. And that's it. Notice that the edges are slightly uneven, and that was done by the script. Also, I have a drop shadow on a separate layer. If I needed to, I could remove this shadow and apply my own. So it's there if you want it. If you don't, you remove it. Now let's create another element using the same script. This time I'll use my brush, my paintbrush tool, and let's say I'm going to be using some kind of a green, and I'll create a diagonal line. Let's run the script on this element. And this time I'll make it a little bit thicker. And I'm done. Now let's add another line of Play-Doh or plasticine across this element. So to do that, I'll go in my layer palette and add a new raster layer on top of the original layer. If I was to just add the layer where the active layer was, it would be under and in between the layer and the shadow. So I'll just go on top, and I'll use the same color. To use the same color, I can right click on my swatch, and you can see here the green will appear. So I'll use the same color. And draw another element and run my script. I'll use the same thickness I did earlier, which was the option 3. Okay, so this would be the end result. However, we can actually tweak it to make it even more realistic. Generally, if you had this plasticine, it probably wouldn't be very straight. It probably would be slightly curved. So I can go on my top layer and use my warp brush. Using the warp mode, the push mode, the size, I'm going to go even larger than the thickness of the bottom element. And I'm going to push the top element a little bit, not too much. In addition, what I can do is use my brush with a smaller setting and squish it a bit, as if I was squishing it with my fingers. Notice now how the edges look a little flatter. Probably because that darker edge is thinner. Let's go closer to the edges. Let's flatten that thing. Okay, something like this. And I will apply it. Now, one thing you will notice is at this point, my shadow does not match anymore. So I just have to delete this layer and I'll add my own shadow later. Another element I might want to add to give more 3D effect is some lightness and darkness. So using here the light and darken brush, using a size that is a bit larger, I have very low hardness because I want something very smooth, and low opacity also because I don't want it to be too obvious. I can use and lighten a bit the area where I would have pressed my fingers, and with my right button just darken the top area, or maybe I'll go a little closer to the edge here and lighten here. So as you can see, it kind of gives a bit of a 3D effect. And now to finish it off, we'll need to add that drop shadow. And since I already had the drop shadow added in a previous layer, PaintShop will keep the same settings as default. So I can just go to Effects, 3D Effects, Drop Shadow, and the exact same settings are there. So I'll apply them. However, considering that the thickness on the ends is probably bigger than in the center, I will still use my warp brush tool to push my shadow slightly inward so that the shadow being narrower will make it look like it is thinner. And this is how you can create a Play-Doh effect and tweak it a little to give it some more 3D effect. It is now time for you to create your own Play-Doh element using this script and PaintShop Pro. Enjoy!